Hello YouTube, this is Tunapsat. Welcome to the concluding end of this tutorial. And if you could recall, we've started this tutorial on how to draw the outline as you see there, and how to add colors or details to the lips and then the teeth. If you've not been with us right from start, I would kindly implore you to go ahead and view those tutorials to get a better understanding on how we arrived at this particular artwork. So the next thing we like to do now is to add colors to the face and then details to the face, and afterwards we add the hair details and then all, and that concludes the tutorial. So the first thing you want to do is you want to head over to the layer tab, create a new layer right above the background image. Switch on the visibility of the background image. Then you want to head over to eyedropper 2, and before you do anything, you need to study your picture well. For every picture there exists 3 different levels to every picture. There is a shadow, which is the darkest part of the picture. Then you have the mid-tone. It's the part where, or it's the middle part between the shadow and then the last level, which is the highlight. Highlight is the lightest part of your image. Every image has these 3 layers, and the first thing I would like you to do before you even go ahead and start adding colors to your face is to first take your time to observe every image. Try to get where the shadows are. Just try to have it at the back of your mind where the shadows are, where the highlights are, and then where the midtones are. Now the first thing you want to do is to first sample a part of the face where you feel is midtone majorly. Now at this point you might not get it right, but then just try to get, because it will be your base color, and that is a color that will form the basis of everything you'll be doing. So just take your time in trying to get this particular part. Okay, you need to get it right. So since I have the shadows around there, the darkest part, then I have the highlights all around there. I think somewhere around there should be the midtone, so I'm picking somewhere around there. So when you do that, you can add color to your image using 2 different methods. You understand? But I would like to go for this other method because I believe I have a better control on the colors when I go through this method. So is that you head over to the pencil tool and drag it over, or you use the pen tool to do that. Okay, let me use the pen tool because the pen tool seems easier than the pencil tool. Once you are done adding colors, you want to remove the visibility of this, and that gives you your artwork exactly. And if you are not happy, this is what the other window, small window, is meant for, just for you to compare the colors. And if you feel the color is still a little bit off, now what you can do is you can pick on the color, then head over to edit colors and color harmony. So here you can adjust the color appropriately to something you'd like, something you prefer. Another thing you can do as well is, if you could recall, there was a different tab I opened at the first when I started this second part of the tutorial, this second tab, so you can easily open the visibility as well. That will bring out the picture beside your artwork. So when you first pick up the color that you just drew, and you head over to eyedropper 2 and just pick the colors accordingly till you see something that seems similar to the base color as you have it at the small tab there. This is just so that you can pick a really good base color to use for your artwork. Now I think this looks similar enough. And at this point, the next thing is to try and to start adding the details, the shadows, the highlight to the face, so that it start looking like the expression as we have it in the other tab. So that's what we're going to do next. Now this is my base color, and from now I can use this color as a prerequisite for every other color I want to use for my artwork. And I like to start from the shadow areas, and then I work my way back to the highlights. Now what I mean is I like to work on the dark part first, and afterwards I start working on the lightest part. Now for every new shadow you want to be adding on the base color, you should always create a layer above the last layer you worked on. Now this is the layer for my base color, so since I want to start adding the shadows, all I will do, the first thing I do is to create a new layer above it. Then you want to head over to the color, and before you pick a color, you shouldn't go straight down, but you should go as diagonal as possible, because when you go diagonal there is more smooth transition between the colors than you going straight down. So it is advisable that when you pick your colors, you go diagonal, you understand? So click OK. So I use a pencil tool for most of the detailing. So throughout this work I'll be doing, for most of the work I'll be doing, I'll be making use of a pencil tool. So you want to remove the visibility of the base color and then on the visibility of the background image. So what I will do now is to start adding colors where I feel the shadows are. Just ignore where you feel highlights are for now. Okay, the time for highlights is coming, but for now just work on where you feel the shadows are, and that is the dark part. So that's where I'll be adding the first color now. So now this is the first part of the shadowing, and this is where I feel some of the shadows are. So as I progress, I'll keep on adding some of the shadows. But for now, there is this thing I like to add. If you are just starting up, you don't need to add this, since you are just getting to, do this for, you've been doing this for not so long. But this is what I do. I try to add some little lines to demarcate the whole thing. You understand?
Once I'm done with the first level of the shadowing, the next step is to create a darker shadow than this, and then work my way up. So what you want to do next is to create a new layer above the last layer. Now you can do that by heading over to the plus sign and clicking it. So you head on to the color. Like I said, when you are picking color, always make sure you head in a diagonal direction so you can get a smooth transition between the colors. So you remove the visibility of the last two layers you've worked on, and then switch on the visibility of the background layer. So then you check for a part of the picture that is even darker than the one you just finished working on, and you apply the new color on them. Now the next thing is to try and blend the colors better, and the way I do this is I sample the last color I use, draw over the previous one, but then I reduce the opacity. Okay. Should use an opacity of around, well, it depends on the part you are trying to blend, but it should be around 45 to 50 or 51. Just play around the opacity till it blends well. Okay, now since I'm done with the detailing of the last shadow, there still exists some parts in the face that are still darker than what we have in the artwork. So I will still have to go even darker than I have gone in this picture. So the first thing you want to do is you want to sample the last shadow layer you used, create a new layer above the layer, and then head over to where the color is. And if you can recall as well, I said when you want to pick color, you should go in the diagonal direction. So okay, that should be fine. Now when you are done choosing the color, the next thing you want to do is head over to the layer tab, remove the visibility of the layers you've worked on, and then leave that of the background image. And all you have to do is apply the new and all you have to do now is apply the new color on places that you feel are still darker than the shadows you've worked on before. So that's what I'll be doing now. Now all that remains is to try and blend the last shadow layer I added, to try and blend it better. And like I said previously, I do that by sampling the latest color I worked to it. Then I draw on it and adjust the opacity to suit me well. You understand? So that is what I'm going to do next. Now, if you feel the shadows are still not dark enough and you still have to go on for that, then surely you can. Like here, I still feel okay, there is still some parts that are really dark on the eye that this color isn't doing justice to. So what I can do is I can still open the last layer for the shadowing and then pick a color that is even darker than this. Work on whichever part is remaining with this new color. Now, since you are done with the color that you feel is the darkest part of the artwork, now the next thing is to start transitioning into the highlight, that is the lightest part. Now, before you do that, you need to come over to the layer part and unlock the layer that is above the base color. So once you are done unlocking it, pick a sample of the color, and now what we want to do is we want to add or want to blend that layer, that color that we did, the first color we first started, we want to blend it a little bit with the base color. Okay, so once you've sampled the color, then you check the areas in your picture that you feel that there is a color that is close to the midtone, and try to add that color while reducing the opacity. It's more like trying to blend as we've been doing before. So that's the same thing we want to do now. Now, in doing that, you can either decide to draw it on your own, or you come over to the layer part and toggle off the visibility of the base color while making sure the one of the background color is still on. And once you've gotten to this stage, the next thing now is to start working on the highlight. That is the lightest part of the picture. So lock this, then go over to the topmost shadow layer and create another layer on top of it. So sample the base color, and this is still trying to blend colors more. So once you sample the base color, just zoom in into your picture, and for some part of the picture that you feel highlights are, just try and draw the base color over them. Then reduce the opacity. This should be lower than the ones you've been using before. Now, in order to make sure the colors blend better, I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing since, and that is sampling the last color I used and then drawing over a part of the color beside it, changing the opacity. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now I'm done with most of the detailing, but I feel there is still some areas that are really light. So I think that will be the last part of the details I'll be adding. Then afterwards I'll go to the hair and then add details to the hair, and that will conclude this tutorial. So watch me as I do that as well. Now at this point, I think I'm done with the detailing of the face, and you can cross-check the colors you've applied and then change it accordingly when you're done. Understand? So if there's any parts that you feel you still have to change, and unlock the whole layer you've worked on, then highlight everything. Head over to edit colors, color harmony. Now when it brings out this window, don't be bothered by the changing color. Just head over to your code, and now from here you can change the hue colors. The hue colors you applied is well represented there, so you can change accordingly to your preference. Once you are done, just hit OK. Now, in order not to make your whole layer parts too long and then messy kind of, you can decide to put this whole layer just in one layer, so you can definitely check it back anytime you want to make a correction. So click on the topmost layer, open a new layer, then click on the layer with the details. While holding the shift key, click on the first one and drag everything to the new layer you created. Now, as you can see, all the layers are here, and what I've just done is I've been able to move the whole details I applied on the face into one layer, and then you can then go on to this arrow and then click it. So as you can see now, the layer part are not as long and then messy as it was before, due to the fact that I've been able to bring the whole detailing layer into one layer. Now finally, it is time to work on the hair, and as it stands, I think that will be the concluding part of this tutorial. In order to do this, you head to the topmost layer, create a new layer above it. Once you are done doing that, you should first examine how the hair is in your picture. And this hair I'm looking at right now, it has two different colors, so I'll be applying those two colors to the hair. because everything I do, I try to follow the picture as much as possible, so I would not be out of place on the detailing. So once you are done opening another new layer here, you want to head over to the eyedropper tool, remove the visibility of the whole layer you've worked on apart from your background or image, then sample the hair part. I'm going to start working from the darker part up to the lighter part as well, just like I did when I was applying details to the face as well. And once you are done sampling, the next thing you want to do is to head over to the arrow here and then pick this brush. If you could recall, we created this brush in the first video we did, so you pick it up, and that is the brush you'll be using for most of the detailing on the hair. So then head over to the hair part and start applying the details. Now, before you apply details, you want to head over to opacity and then reduce the opacity. This is the first detail you'll be applying, so you can reduce as much as possible, and you can definitely increase this opacity later, so it is not compulsory you have to use a particular one at this point. Now I will sample and apply for the second color as well. And you should remember that I'm still working with the dark part. So at this point, this color I'm applying is still the dark color, you understand? After this, I'll still then apply the lighter part. Now, like I said, the hair contains two colors, so the next thing is to apply the details of the second color of the hair. And you should recall that this is just the darkest part, so we've not started working on the light or this little light part as well. So, and I will advise that you create another new layer for this in case you want to change the color, so that it will not affect the previous one you've worked with. Reduce the opacity like you did in the first color. And just draw on it. You can adjust the color appropriately by choosing the whole color and then heading over to edit colors, color only. Now, since I'm able to map out the dark part of the hair, it is now time to work on the light part. Okay, and go to the topmost layer, create another new layer, and you can either decide to do this yourself or use a picture as well. So just remove the whole layer, switch on the background image, then pick a color that you feel is lighter than the one you previously worked with. And once you are done, just try to map it out on your picture, but first reduce the opacity